Imagine the first light of dawn creeping over the battlements of a medieval castle. The sky is a cool gray and a mist clings to the ground outside the fortress walls. Inside the castle's courtyard, there's a faint stir of activity. Roosters crow from the nearby stables, and a few dogs trot across the yard sniffing at yesterday's scraps. The castle, a stout stone stronghold guarding the surrounding lands, is beginning to awaken. This castle is more than just cold stone and towers. It's a bustling community and a symbol of power, a little world unto itself. In the Middle Ages, castles like this one were centers of society under the feudal system, where people worked and fought for their lord in exchange for protection and land. The towering walls and gatehouse are both home and fortress, representing the lord's authority over the region and a refuge in troubled times. As we stand in the shadow of the high curtain walls, we can see the outline of the central keep rising above, the final stronghold within these defenses. It's early morning, and life inside the castle is stirring. A lowly kitchen boy, bundled in a threadbare cloak against the dawn chill, hurries across the courtyard carrying pails of water from the castle well. Above him on the ramparts, a sentry in a thick woolen tunic paces slowly, stamping his feet for warmth and peering out through the crenellations at the quiet countryside. Peacetime or not, a few soldiers are always on duty to keep watch from the walls. In a small castle like this, only a dozen or so guards might garrison the fort when things are quiet, just enough to man the gate, mind the drawbridge, and patrol the walls against any stray bandits. But for now, all seems calm beyond the moat, with nothing stirring in the distant trees. Within the thick stone gatehouse, the night guard is changing shifts. The heavy oak doors are pushed open just enough for the morning patrol to slip out. They'll scout around the outside of the walls, checking that no one, or nothing, undesirable lurks by the perimeter. A creaking sound echoes through the courtyard as the drawbridge is slowly lowered across the moat for the day. The clank of the iron portcullis being winched up follows. Thick metal spikes rise above the gateway, allowing entrance to those who approach. These daily rituals of lowering drawbridge and raising portcullis mark the castle's awakening. As the gray dawn light strengthens, it reveals the full form of the castle's architecture. This fortress is built with multiple defensive layers. High curtain walls encircle the inner buildings, and at each corner, a tower stands watch. The outer bailey, the courtyard we're in, is ringed by these walls. Across the yard, we see the gatehouse we just heard groaning into action. It's a fortified entrance with two stout towers and murder holes above the passage, ready to rain down unpleasant surprises on any invader. Opposite the gatehouse, on the far side of the bailey, rises the keep, a great stone tower that is the heart of the castle. The keep is the last refuge in case of attack, a castle within a castle, and also houses some of the lord's private apartments. In fact, some mighty lords even built self-contained great towers that could hold out if the rest of the castle fell, like the Earl of Northumberland's Great Tower at Warkworth Castle, which had its own wine cellar, hall, chapel, and bedrooms. Our castle's keep is not quite so luxurious, but it is formidable. Its thick walls and narrow windows show that defense comes first. Despite the fortress's daunting appearance, signs of domestic life are everywhere. Along one side of the yard, a few timber outbuildings lean against the wall. We can spot the smoke already rising from the kitchen's chimney there, and next to it the brewhouse and bakery are quiet for now. A small herd of goats and a milk cow are penned in one corner near a coop of chickens. Even a castle needs its fresh milk and eggs. By the stables, grooms begin to emerge, leading horses out to drink at a trough. These are the prized war horses and palfreys of the lord and his knights, and their breath steams in the cold morning air as they nuzzle the water. Our journey into the past has begun. The castle stands as a microcosm of medieval life, containing within its walls the daily routines, struggles, and joys of both nobles and servants. On this day, we'll follow them from sunrise to sunrise, through routine and surprise, feast and conflict, to discover what life was truly like in a medieval castle. Morning duties and drills. It's now fully morning, and the castle bustles with purpose. For the servants of the castle, the workday has long begun. In fact, many of them have been up since before the sun. In the summertime, a servant's day might start as early as 5:30 a.m., and they would toil until roughly 7 in the evening. Even in winter's later dawn, there is much to do. There are dozens upon dozens of servants here, ranging from the noble-born pages serving the lord and lady to the lowly scullions and stable hands. When the castle's lord is in residence, the population swells. An important noble might travel with an entourage of 30, 100, or even more people in their household. Not all are here today, but our castle is far from quiet. This morning, around 100 servants and retainers move about their tasks, since the Lord's family is expected to be here. Indeed, we recall that Countess Joan de Valence once arrived at Goodrich Castle with 194 followers and 50 horses in tow, sending the castle into a frenzy of preparations. Today's household isn't quite that large, but it's busy enough. In the castle kitchen, the staff are already hard at work over the hearths and chopping blocks. The head cook, let's call him Master Isaac of the kitchen, as in one historical castle record, is directing his sleepy-eyed assistants. The kitchen is a stone building set slightly apart to reduce fire risk, and inside, it's lit by the flicker of many flames. 2 young scullions struggle to turn a heavy iron spit on which several cuts of meat are already roasting. Another servant boy hauls in wood for the fires. Master Isaac calls out, "Mind the embers, don't let it die down. We've a feast to prepare by nightfall." He might be exaggerating calling it a feast. But there is an important dinner planned for this evening, so the cooks must be ready. Even on a normal day, feeding the castle is a monumental task. In a castle of this size, the cook may need to provide 2 meals a day for up to 200 people when the Lord's household is present. Breakfast, as we know it, isn't a grand affair. Many common folk will just nibble some leftover bread or porridge in the morning. But the main meal comes later, around midday, and a lighter supper in the evening. Today, however, extra preparation is underway. The kitchen senses that tonight's supper will be special, perhaps with distinguished guests or a celebration. Master Isaac ladles stew from a cauldron and tastes it critically, already planning how to impress the lord and lady with the evening's courses. Chopping and sizzling sounds fill the air. The kitchen's massive fireplace gives off roaring heat, warming this corner of the castle. Even in winter, a kitchen like this is a hot, smoky hive of activity. We see John the baker, arms white with flour, sliding another batch of dough into a brick oven built into the wall. Each day, John bakes loaves of all kinds, from fine white bread made of sifted wheat for the nobility's table, to coarse brown loaves of barley and oats for the servants and soldiers. Nothing goes to waste. Even the horses might get the rock-hard leftover breads made of pea or bean flour. Nearby, Richard the Saucerer, aptly nicknamed for his specialty in sauces, is busy at a mortar and pestle, grinding up precious spices. The rich aroma of cinnamon, pepper, and cloves begins to cut through the heavier smells of meat and smoke. These imported spices are expensive, but the castle's mistress insists on them. A lavish use of spice and sauces will show any guest how wealthy and cultured this household is. Richard stirs a sharp sauce for the salted fish and meat that have been preserved since winter, masking any toughness with flavor. Such seasoning is vital in the cold season, since fresh food is scarce with no refrigeration, and the castle must rely on barrels of salted pork and fish until spring. While the kitchen labors elsewhere in the castle, other servants tackle their own morning chores. A team of laundresses hauls linens and clothes down to a stream just outside the walls. Laundry is often done in cold running water, no luxury of hot washing machines here. They'll scrub the lord's elaborate garments as gently as possible, wincing at the thought of damaging the fine fabrics, and pound the sturdier everyday clothes with lye soap to get out the dirt. Within the great hall, a pair of servants sweeps the floor and clears away debris from last night's simple supper. The floor of the hall is still strewn with old rushes, dried reeds that have been scattered about to cover the floor. These rushes act like a disposable carpet, masking dirt and providing some insulation underfoot. As one servant rakes up the old rushes, a pungent blend of odors rises. Crushed herbs that had been mixed in for fragrance, combined with less pleasant hints of spilled ale, grease, and who knows what. It's no wonder one medieval writer complained that beneath the rushes often lay an ancient collection of beer, grease, fragments, bones, spittle, excrement of dogs and cats, and everything that is nasty. With a scrunched nose, the servant carries out the soiled rushes in a basket to be dumped outside. His comrade follows, unrolling fresh mats woven from rushes and scattering a few sweet-smelling herbs like lavender and thyme onto them for good measure. The great hall will look presentable and smell a touch better for the noble company that will dine here later. Over by the hearth in the great hall, another servant feeds the central fire. In older castles, the hall might have a big open fire right in the middle of the room, the smoke curling up to a louver vent in the roof. Here, we're lucky to have a stone fireplace built into the wall, an invention that became common in the High Middle Ages. The hearth's warmth radiates off the stones, taking the chill out of the vast hall. Even so, the air is cool and damp until the fire really gets going. The servant hangs a metal couvre-feu, a fire cover, nearby. At night, he'll place that over the embers to keep them smoldering safely until morning. Above the mantel, a tapestry depicting a hunting scene stirs slightly as a draft snakes through the hall. Tapestries are not only decoration, they help insulate the room from cold stone walls and keep out some of the drafts. In the early morning light, the colors of the textile, faded blues and reds, are muted, but as the fire grows brighter, the golden threads of the Lord's heraldry in the weaving glint faintly. Elsewhere, in the semi-darkness of the castle chapel, the resident priest or chaplain is starting his day as well. The chapel is small, but richly adorned with a painted wooden altar and colored glass in its narrow windows. This morning, as on every day, he rings a bell to announce matins, the first prayers. The Lord and Lady are still in their chambers, and may have private devotions later, but some of the staff pause in their labors to cross themselves or whisper a quick prayer. The chaplain, robed in linen and wool, goes about lighting a few candles and preparing for a short morning mass. Religion is woven into the daily routine here. Meals will be preceded by grace, and the chaplain will hear confessions or offer counsel to the household when needed. In larger castles, there may even be multiple clergy on staff. Almoners to distribute alms to the poor at the gate, confessors, and clerks who double as literate secretaries for the Lord. Our chaplain is mostly concerned with the spiritual well-being of the castle's inhabitants. He lays out a beautifully illuminated prayer book on the altar, its Latin text and bright illustrations catching a flicker of candlelight as he softly intones the first prayers of the day. Back in the main keep, high up in the Lord's chambers, the nobility are beginning to stir. These private chambers are in the safest part of the castle, often on an upper floor of the keep or a separate fortified tower. The Lord's bedchamber is a world apart from the noisy hall below. In fact, here in our castle, the Lord's family has a solar, a sunny upper room, that serves as a private sitting and sleeping area for the Lord and Lady. The thick wooden door is guarded outside by a household knight acting as a sentry. Inside, a small brazier of coals left overnight has kept the chill at bay. The Lord's bed is a grand four-poster draped with heavy curtains. Not only do these embroidered bed curtains display wealth, they also help keep out drafts. Piled on the bed are wool blankets and furs. A softly snoring figure, our lord of the castle, is just now interrupted by the gentle clearing of a throat. It's his valet, a personal servant, often of noble birth himself, stepping quietly into the chamber. "My lord, morning has broken," the valet says respectfully. In these days, there are no alarm clocks except the voices of servants and perhaps the castle cockerels. If the lord were a king, this valet might have a fancy title like Groom of the Stool or Chamberlain, attending to personal needs. For our lord, a trusted young valet from a minor noble family serves faithfully. The valet pulls back the bed curtains to let in a bit of light. From the window slit, one can see the courtyard below coming alive. The lord sits up, rubbing his eyes. Almost immediately, 2 pages, boys of perhaps 12 or 13 who serve as apprentice attendants, appear to assist. One carries a basin of water and a linen towel. The Lord dips his hands and face, cleansing himself to start the day. Bathing in the Middle Ages is infrequent. A full bath might be a once-a-week luxury involving a wooden tub and heated water, but washing face and hands each morning is customary. The valet and pages help the lord dress. Today, he opts for a burgundy velvet doublet, a padded jacket, and woolen hose for warmth, with a fur-lined overgown to wear in the drafty halls. As the pages lace up his clothing and fetch his belt and dagger, the lord inquires, "Has the lady arisen yet?" In the ladies' chamber next door, a similar scene is playing out with a feminine touch. The lady of the castle is already awake, seated on a padded stool as her ladies-in-waiting and maids prepare her for the day. One maid gently untangles her long hair, while another lays out a delicate embroidered headdress and wimple for her to wear. A fine gown of deep green wool, trimmed with mini-vair, white squirrel fur, is held up for her approval. As they help her into the layers of skirts and lace the sides, the lady murmurs a few words about the day's plans. She might be asking if the stores are ready for the feast tonight, or if the decorations in the hall have been seen to. The lady of a castle often oversees the domestic management. She is like the CEO of the household, ensuring all runs smoothly, especially when preparing to host guests or celebrations. If the lord is away, and indeed nobles often travel or fight in wars, the lady is fully in charge of the castle's affairs. In our story, the lord is present, but he relies on his wife's keen attention to detail to keep their home both comfortable and respectable. Dressed and ready, the lord and lady convene briefly in the solar. A light morning meal is brought up to them, just some bread with butter and perhaps a cup of warmed spiced wine or ale. It's a far cry from a modern breakfast spread. Medieval nobility usually broke their fast sparingly. There might be some fruits or nuts or pottage, a thick grain porridge, but since a large midday dinner is planned, they won't eat too heavily now. They share this simple private bite while discussing the day. Through the window, they can see the sun now gilding the tops of the castle walls and hear the echo of clanging metal from the courtyard. That sound is the clash of weapons, a sure sign that the knights and men-at-arms are already busy with their morning drills. Down in the courtyard, a group of armored figures has gathered in the crisp morning air. These are the castle's knights, squires, and men-at-arms, the trained warriors who uphold the lord's military might. Some are permanent residents, part of the lord's retinue. Others are local knights, visiting or in training. Every day, when not off at war, they practice combat to stay sharp. Today, with no immediate battles to fight, they engage in some friendly sparring. Two knights on foot, wearing padded gambesons and helmets but using blunted swords, circle each other before striking in rapid succession. Clang, clash, the ring of blade on blade draws a few castle folks to pause and watch. A squire, a teenage boy serving a knight, stands by, holding a shield and extra sword for his master. The knights batter away at each other's shields with controlled force, honing their swordsmanship. Over by the archery butt, a target of straw bales set against the far wall, a trio of the lord's archers take turns loosing arrows from their longbows. Thwack! One arrow sticks into the painted target near the center. These archers are impressively skilled. A seasoned longbowman can shoot rapidly and pierce armor at long range, a fact any would-be attacker should fear. Indeed, castle walls often have special narrow windows, arrow loops, designed for archers to shoot from cover. Our castle's towers and walls are peppered with these cross-shaped slits, creating deadly firing positions for both longbowmen and crossbowmen should battle come. Supervising all this martial exercise is the castle's constable, or garrison commander, a grizzled knight named Sir Robert. Sir Robert is effectively the head of security, and in the lord's absence would command the castle. He nods in approval as he watches a younger knight practice a lance thrust from horseback in the yard. The mounted knight levels his lance and skewers a dummy target of woven straw. Around them, the daily life continues. A pair of grooms trot past with more horses, and one of the kennel boys is struggling to contain 3 barking hunting hounds that are straining at their leashes. The lord enjoys hunting, and his hounds, sleek greyhounds and sturdy mastiffs, are exercised each morning by the kennel staff. They run the dogs outside the castle when possible, but sometimes, like now, an overexcited hound will break free and dash across the bailey chasing a hapless chicken. Today, a frantic boy runs after an especially naughty dog, shouting, "Come back here, you devil!" as a hen squawks and flutters away in alarm. This little comic scene draws laughter from a couple of archers taking a break. One corner of the yard hosts the blacksmith's forge, and from that direction comes the steady ping, ping of a hammer on metal. The castle's blacksmith is already at work shoeing a horse. The scent of hot iron and hoof wafts by. He will be busy all day not just with horseshoes, but also repairing armor, sharpening swords, and fixing tools. Next to the forge is the carpenter's workshop, where wood shavings litter the ground from the making of barrels and arrows. A castle must be a largely self-sufficient community, so craftsmen of many trades have a place here. Armorers, fletchers, arrow makers, bowyers, bowmakers, and perhaps a cobbler for shoes. Many of these skilled workers might actually live in the nearby town or village and come into the castle to work as needed. Just then, a distant horn blast echoes from beyond the walls. Everyone in the courtyard freezes for a moment, listening. The sentry on the wall shouts down, "Rider approaching!" Instantly, Sir Robert the Constable motions to a couple of soldiers and they jog to the gatehouse. We follow the action as they crank the windlass to lower the drawbridge a bit more. It had been re-raised after the morning patrol and prepare to open the gate. The portcullis is still up from earlier. Soon hoofbeats clatter on wood. A lone messenger on horseback rides over the drawbridge and into the courtyard. The man is spattered with mud, his horse lathered from hard travel. He wears the colors of a neighboring lord. The castle's steward and a few others approach as the messenger swings down from the saddle. Catching his breath, the messenger announces news. The noble visitors are on their way and will arrive by midday. The lady of the castle returns today along with Sir So-and-so, expected by noon. He manages between breaths. He also hands over a sealed letter, presumably with more details. At this news, a ripple of excitement and a touch of panic goes through the gathered staff. The lady of the castle, who had been away, is coming home earlier than anticipated, and she's bringing company. Perhaps she had been visiting relatives or accompanying the court and decided to return. In any case, the castle must prepare at once to receive its lord's wife, or perhaps the lord's liege lady, with proper pomp. We recall from history how a sudden arrival of a noble could overwhelm a castle's staff, like when Joan de Valence showed up at Goodrich Castle with a huge entourage in 1296, prompting a rapid cleanup to accommodate her retinue. Our castle now faces a similar scenario, albeit on a smaller scale. Sir Robert nods and claps the messenger on the shoulder, instructing a page to see the man fed and his horse tended to. He's earned some breakfast after a hard ride. Then the constable turns and barks orders to the courtyard at large. "You heard him? The lady returns by noon, with guests. Let's get this place in order." The sleepy castle has fully come to life now. Servants scurry off in all directions to spread the word. Some head to the stables to ensure fresh hay and make space for the guests' horses and carriages. Others rush to the steward for specific assignments. The steward of the castle, an important official overseeing daily domestic affairs, steps forward unfolding the messenger's letter. His eyes scan quickly. She travels with Sir Stephen and a dozen men, plus her ladies. They'll need quarters and a proper welcome. The letter says she expects a banquet tonight in honor of Sir Stephen's knighthood, he announces. He immediately directs a servant. Find the housekeeper and have all chambers in the guest wing aired and made ready. Tapestries hung, fresh sheets on the beds, and have the pages lay fires in those rooms. To another he says, alert the cook of the numbers. We'll likely have 20 extra mouths at table. And tell the butler and pantler to inventory our wine and pantry stores for the feast. We may need to tap that barrel of Malmsey wine we've been saving. The courtyard that was a scene of leisure training minutes ago is now a coordinated frenzy. Knights end their sparring session. One laughs, clapping his opponent on the back. We'll finish that bout later. Time to put on our finery for the lady's arrival. Even the resident jester, a comic entertainer kept by the lord, pokes his head out of a doorway, alerted by the commotion. He grins and begins practicing a juggling trick with some apples, already brainstorming witty remarks for the welcome. In medieval castles, entertainment was live and constant. A good jester or storyteller always found a place at the hearth, especially on long evenings. Ours, wearing a motley of red and yellow with a cap sporting floppy donkey ears, is keen to earn a smile from the lady upon her return. Midday, a noble arrival. The sun is climbing toward its zenith, and the castle has been whipped into shape just in time. Along the road leading to the castle, we see a small procession approaching, banners fluttering with the lady's heraldic colors, let's say a golden lion on a scarlet field, and the glint of armor among the group. The lady of the castle is almost home. On the castle walls, soldiers and lookouts stand at attention. The drawbridge is down, the gate thrown open in welcome. Just inside the gatehouse, the lord of the castle himself waits, dressed in an elegant fur-lined surcoat, his boots polished, and a jeweled dagger at his belt. Beside him are key members of the household, the steward, the constable Sir Robert, and a few of the lord's closest knights. They all stand ready to greet their lady with appropriate honor. A herald trumpet sounds a bright note from the ramparts as the party nears, a ceremonial touch to mark the occasion. The first riders cross the drawbridge, 2 knights in front acting as escort, their horses clopping on the wood. They dip their lances in salute to their lord as they pass under the portcullis. Behind them comes a covered horse-drawn carriage, a wooden carriage with open sides covered by embroidered cloth, suitable for a high-born lady. You can glimpse inside the lady, holding onto her fine hat as the carriage jostles. Flanking her carriage are a handful of mounted men-at-arms and a couple of ladies-in-waiting on their own palfreys. At the rear, several pack horses and wagons carry baggage, chests of clothes, gifts, and other goods, perhaps even some prized falcons in cages if she's bringing her hunting birds along. This is a modest retinue by some standards, but still, around 20 new arrivals in total are coming in. As the carriage rolls into the courtyard, the lord steps forward. The lady of the castle emerges, assisted by a footman. She's resplendent in a traveling gown of blue, dusty from the road but still impressive, and a veil covers her hair. Her face lights up upon seeing her husband. The lord bows, and then they share a warm, if formal, embrace. "Welcome home, my dear," he says. The assembled household and guards bow as well, a wave of dipping heads and curtsies to the lady. She greets a few familiar faces. "Good Sir Robert, I trust you kept all in order," she teases the constable, who grins. Another rider dismounts and approaches. Sir Stephen, the knight mentioned earlier, who apparently traveled with the lady. He is a youthful knight freshly honored, perhaps a kinsman or favored vassal of the lord. The lord clasps forearms with him in friendship. "Sir Stephen, I am pleased you accompany my wife. We'll celebrate your new knighthood properly tonight." Sir Stephen thanks him with a broad smile. The lady, though weary from the road, immediately inquires after her children. If they have any, they might have stayed behind in the castle or at a safer location. A nanny appears with 2 young children who run to their mother excitedly. For a moment, the martial courtyard is filled with the laughter of a family reunion, a touching glimpse of tenderness in this stone bastion. But the work is not done for the staff. Under the steward's direction, servants hurry to take charge of the arriving party's needs. Chambermaids lead the ladies-in-waiting off to the chambers prepared for them, arms full of the ladies' personal luggage. Grooms grab the horses' reins from the knights and begin to lead the animals to the stables, where fresh water and feed await. The castle's butler, in charge of the cellar and drink, and pantler, in charge of the bread and pantry, are already coordinating refreshments. Jugs of watered wine, ale, and trenchers of cheese and fruit are being set in the solar for the lady and her companions to snack on and refresh themselves after the journey. The lady walks arm in arm with the lord across the courtyard and into the keep, heading to the solar or a private withdrawing room. As she passes, she notices the clean, swept yard and the bright banners flying from the towers. The steward made sure the castle's banners were unfurled in her honor. She gives an approving nod. Inside, on the stairs to the solar, she pauses, sniffing the air. "They've strewn fresh herbs? I smell lavender," she notes softly to her husband. Indeed, the servants have also refreshed the rushes in the upper rooms with sweet herbs to welcome her. All these small touches are part of showing respect and ensuring the lady's return is a pleasant one. While the nobles withdraw for a time, the rest of the castle resumes a bit of normalcy. It's around midday now, normally time for the main dinner meal of the day. The household would typically eat their primary meal somewhere around late morning or noon, depending on schedule. Today, the schedule is a bit disrupted by the arrival, but soon the Great Hall is filled with activity as everyone sits down for a quick dinner. In the Great Hall, trestle tables have been set out and draped with clean white cloths. The lady and the lord, along with Sir Stephen and a few high-born guests, will sit at the high table on a raised dais at one end of the hall. The seating reflects strict hierarchy, the nobility at the dais with the best fare, and the lower-ranking folk further down or at separate tables in the hall. Even within the household, status matters. The steward, chaplain, and master-at-arms might sit closer to the lords, whereas kitchen servants and laborers eat last, possibly even in the kitchen itself. The foods served at this midday dinner are hearty, but not overly lavish. The real feast is reserved for tonight. Trenchers of bread, essentially plates made from thick slabs of stale bread, are laid out to serve as edible dishware. The first course might be a pottage, a thick soup or stew made from grains and vegetables, simmered with some bits of meat. The cooks have also sent up roasted game birds that were already on the spit this morning. Perhaps some pigeons or a brace of conies, rabbits, cooked with herbs. There are bowls of peas and onions, trenchers spread with fresh butter, and small wedges of cheese. Cups are filled with ale, beer, for most diners, though the lord and lady have a fine wine before them. Imported wine for the nobility, ale for the rest is the general rule. The butler ensures the lord's wine cup stays full, pouring from a silver flagon. Before anyone touches the food, the chaplain stands and says a blessing in Latin. The hall falls silent as all cross themselves and murmur, Amen. Then a servant at the high table brings around a ewer of water and a basin and offers a towel, a ritual hand-washing before eating, as proper manners dictate. The lord and lady dip their fingers, then the bowl and towel are carried to other prominent guests. Cleanliness at table is urged, at least for the upper crust. Medieval etiquette books remind diners to wash hands and to keep their eating area tidy. As people begin to eat, the sounds of a normal meal fill the air. Conversations, clinking cups, laughter at a joke from the jester who has begun to stroll around making light commentary. The atmosphere in the hall is communal and lively. In these times, everyone ate together in the great hall. The lord, his family, his knights, and many servants all sharing the space. Such communal dining reinforced the bonds of loyalty, and also allowed the lord to keep an eye on his household. In some castles, the lord's closest attendants or some servants might later slip away to eat separately, but at least part of the meal is often shared. In centuries to come, this practice would fade and servants would dine apart, but in our medieval setting, it's still the norm. We notice some interesting table customs as the meal goes on. The young pages attending the high table stand by alertly to serve trenchers and carry messages. One page in particular, a boy of noble birth serving here to learn courtly manners, looks a bit nervous. We realize he's mentally recalling lessons from a book of etiquette given to him. Do not blow your nose on the tablecloth. Do not spit on the floor where people can see, and always beware thy hind parts of guns blasting, the book had warned. In other words, don't embarrass yourself or your masters with crude behavior. The phrasing about hind parts and guns blasting was a cheeky medieval way to say mind your farts, a reminder that even back then, a fart at the dinner table was frowned upon, despite the humor it might elicit. The page stands very straight, determined not to commit any faux pas in front of the lady and distinguished guests. Across the hall at a lower table, the castle's workers tear into their trenchers with gusto. They might not have the fanciest spices or delicacies, but they eat well compared to common peasants outside. In fact, one perk of being a castle servant was regular, quality meals year-round, provided by the lord's generosity and wealth. They dine on the lord's leftovers, and those remain far better than what a poor farmer might scrape together in winter. A kitchen maid chats happily between bites of stew, and a stable hand gulps his ale, feeling content. He knows many villagers would envy a position in the castle. Though their work is long and hard, these servants wear the lord's livery, uniform, proudly, and enjoy relative security, enough that such positions are sought after. Up at the high table, the conversation is more subdued and polite. The Lord asks Sir Stephen about the journey and any news from the court or the road. Sir Stephen mentions a rumor of trouble in a neighboring shire, perhaps bandits on the move. The lady mentions she heard talk of an illness spreading in one of the villages they passed. The chaplain adds a comment about praying for protection. These small talk topics reflect the realities of the times. Travel is often hazardous, and health is always precarious. The midday meal doesn't linger too long. After all, there is much to prepare for tonight's banquet. As each person finishes, they wipe their hands on napkins or slices of bread, which might later be given to the poor at the gate. The Lord and Lady rise, and everyone else in the hall promptly stands as well out of respect. Another short prayer is given by the chaplain, giving thanks. Then, with a scraping of benches, the assemblage begins to disperse. Servants leap into action, clearing the tables, collecting wooden bowls, gathering up linen tablecloths that need cleaning, and tossing used trenchers into baskets. These soaked pieces of bread will go to feed the hounds or the pigs, or sometimes to beggars at the gate. The great hall empties out, and a brief quiet descends as people return to their duties or take a short rest before the evening's excitement. Afternoon in the castle. The early afternoon finds the castle in a flurry of preparations and routine tasks. The lady, having rested a bit from her journey, is now taking an active role in overseeing the evening's event. In the solar, we find her seated at a writing desk with parchment and quill, along with her steward and the cook, Master Isaac, standing by. They are reviewing the menu and arrangements for tonight's banquet. "We shall seat Sir Stephen at the high table to my husband's right," she instructs. "Ensure the musicians are prepared. I'd like the harpist to play during the first course." She dots a few notes on the parchment. The steward bows and departs to arrange the seating and call the local minstrels who sometimes perform in the castle. The lady then turns to the cook. "Master Isaac, what of the pastry swans we discussed?" Master Isaac, who a moment ago was a burly, commanding figure in the kitchens, stands humbly with cap in hand before his mistress. "My lady, the pastry swans are coming along. We've baked the crust in the shape of a swan as you requested, and the confectioner is preparing to fashion the necks and heads from sugar. They will be ready as a subtlety for the final course," he reports. The lady smiles. Subtleties, called entremets in French, are decorative dishes served between courses or at the meal's end, often shaped to impress or amuse diners. A pastry or jelly molded into a swan or castle or some mythic creature is just the thing to delight her guests. "Excellent," she says, "and be sure the peacock is roasted carefully. We shall reattach its glorious feathers for display." Yes, they are planning to serve a roast peacock, a true delicacy. The bird's iridescent plumes will be stuck back onto its cooked body, making a spectacular centerpiece, though it might be more for show than taste. The cook nods and leaves to continue his work, a slight sweat already on his brow despite the winter chill. The pressure is on to make this feast one to remember. Meanwhile, in the castle's courtyard and halls, various other afternoon activities unfold. Let's stroll through and observe. In the barracks area, some off-duty soldiers lounge and mend their gear. One archer sits fletching arrows, fitting feathers to shafts, preparing a new sheaf of arrows to replenish the arsenal. Another uses a whetstone to sharpen his sword methodically. A few make idle chatter about the upcoming feast. "I hear even the good wine will flow tonight," one grins. "If we're lucky, they'll pass us a jug when they're deep in their cups." The prospect of extra wine and leftover rich foods has the garrison in a good mood. However, Sir Robert the Constable hasn't relaxed. He stands near the gatehouse with a couple of sergeants, discussing the schedule for night watch and ensuring that with all the festivities, security will not lapse. They plan to double-check that the gate is secured after sundown and arrange rotating patrols on the walls even during the banquet. The realm is relatively peaceful at the moment, but a good constable never becomes complacent. Recent rumors of banditry or unrest have him on guard. Over in the chapel, the chaplain is taking inventory of the supplies for upcoming holy days. He thumbs through beeswax candles, checks the sacramental wine stock, and polishes the silver chalice. He also sets out a register to record a mass of thanksgiving to be offered tomorrow in honor of Sir Stephen's knighthood, at the lady's request. Religion touches each aspect of castle life. After feasting comes praying. The chaplain has also gently reminded the cook that tomorrow is Friday, a day of abstinence, so no meat should be served then, a detail to keep in mind for leftovers planning. The castle's cooks are used to this. On many days, like Fridays or during Lent, they pivot to fish dishes. In fact, they went through 24,000 herring in 3 months at one castle, Goodrich, to feed everyone during fish days. In one quieter corner of the castle, we find the castle's children at their lessons. The lord and lady's 2 children, a boy of about 8 and a girl of 6, are seated with a tutor, a learned man from the clergy. On a small wooden table lies a hornbook, a kind of paddle with alphabet and prayers, and some parchments with simple writing. The boy is reciting Latin phrases, likely a passage from scripture or a grammar exercise, while the girl fidgets with a carved wooden doll under the table. Education for noble children is valued. They learn to read, basic Latin, mathematics, and proper behavior, often under the tutelage of priests or educated clerks. The boy, being groomed as a future lord, will later also learn horseback riding, swordsmanship, and the arts of war, likely by becoming a page in another noble's household when he's a bit older. The little girl will be taught household management, maybe some needlework and music, and how to run an estate, preparing for her future role as lady of a castle herself. But for now, they're just children. After the Latin lesson, the tutor allows them a short break and they burst outside to play. We see them in the courtyard a moment later, joined by a couple of the noble pages. They play a quick game of hoop and stick, rolling a wooden hoop and chasing it, or perhaps they toss little homemade dolls. Medieval children had toys too. Small wooden knights, dolls, balls, spinning tops. And as much as their upbringing was strict, they still found time for laughter and play. Their nurse keeps a watchful eye to ensure they don't get into too much mischief, or too dirty, before tonight's formal gathering. Passing by the kitchens again, the smell has intensified, a mouth-watering blend of spices, roasting meat, and baking pastry. The kitchen staff is in full swing to prepare multiple courses for the banquet. On a side table, we see a servant plucking feathers from game birds. Another is carefully stirring a pot of pottage that will be served as a soup course. The scullions, the lowest kitchen boys, look miserable as they scour blackened pots and pans with sand and water outside the kitchen door. It's a never-ending task. As soon as they finish one, another sooty cauldron is brought out. But at least the promise of leftover sweets later keeps them motivated. We venture to the outer edge of the bailey where the gardens lie. Even in winter, the castle tries to maintain a kitchen garden. It's largely dormant now, save for some hardy herbs, sage, rosemary, and thyme still cling to life in a sheltered patch. A gardener prunes the dormant fruit trees in the small orchard, apple and pear trees that in summer yield fruit for the Lord's table. Near a corner we spot a dovecote, a structure that houses pigeons. Many castles kept dovecotes because pigeons provided squabs, young pigeons, for meat year-round, as well as eggs and fertilizer. It's a sign of lordly status to have a full dovecote. The birds flap about as the gardener's boy climbs a ladder to check on them. He might collect a few eggs, or see which young birds are ready for harvest. The peasants in surrounding villages aren't usually allowed to keep pigeons. That privilege belongs to the lord, so the castle's dovecote is important for fresh meat in all seasons. Not far from the garden is the fish pond, a still reflective pool fed by a diverted stream. Earlier in the day, some servants broke the thin ice on it. Now a couple of kitchen hands are casting a net to catch carp or pike for tomorrow's fasting day meals. Many castles have fish ponds stocked with freshwater fish to ensure a supply for Fridays and Lent. The men shiver as they pull up the net with a few squirming fish. Success. They'll keep them alive in a smaller tub of water until needed. Inside the castle's storerooms under the hall, the cellarer and butler are making sure the best provisions are brought up. We see rows of barrels and casks in the cool, dim undercroft. Ale, wine, salted meats, flour, and beans. The butler is tapping a cask of red wine imported from Gascony, southwestern France, a popular source of wine for English nobility. He takes a small taste and nods in approval. It will do nicely for tonight. Nearby, another helper layers straw around a barrel of butter and cheese wheels to keep them insulated. In the pantry, the pantler inspects loaves of fine white bread baked earlier. These manchettes will grace the high table. Coarser rye loaves for the servants are set aside in baskets. The castle's seamstresses and tailors are also busy this afternoon. In a small chamber lit by a narrow window, two women bend over rich fabrics. One is repairing a tear in the lord's decorative tunic that he plans to wear after dusk. Perhaps he'll change into something even more magnificent for the banquet. Another is hastily adding new velvet trim to the lady's gown, or perhaps letting out the seams on a dress for one of the growing children. Clothes are precious and reused often in these times, but noble fashions also change, so gowns might be altered for new occasions. These women chat softly as they work, gossiping a bit about the visiting Sir Stephen. He's quite handsome, isn't he? And newly knighted. Perhaps he'll be looking for a wife soon, one giggles. The other hushes her. Careful, walls have ears, she says, glancing around. One never knows if some old peephole or squint in castle architecture might be allowing someone to listen in. Castles sometimes had such hidden openings so lords or stewards could keep an eye or ear on goings-on. In the late afternoon, the lord of the castle takes Sir Stephen and a few others on a brief tour of the grounds outside. They exit the castle and ride a short distance into the woods for a bit of hunting, one of the favorite pastimes of medieval nobility. The hunting party is small today, just a chance to let Sir Stephen try out his new hunting bird. Sir Stephen has brought along a falcon on his glove, a sleek peregrine with sharp eyes and a leather hood covering its head to keep it calm. Once in an open field, they spot a flock of ducks by a stream. With the lord's permission, Sir Stephen removes the falcon's hood and lets the bird fly. In a swift blur of motion, the falcon soars and dives, striking a duck in moments. The hunting dogs are released as well, and they flush out a hare from the brush. The lord looses an arrow and strikes it. Dinner has an extra course now. The men cheer and congratulate each other on the sport. Hunting not only provides meat for the table, but is also a way for nobles to display martial skill and bond with each other. They'll return to the castle with a couple of game birds and the hare to present to the cook. Maybe these will be cooked up tomorrow or the next day, since tonight's menu is already set. As the sun dips lower, a horn from the castle signals the hunting party's return. The gates open for them, and they ride in, handing off their prizes to the kitchen staff. The falcon is carefully hooded and taken back to the mews. The birdmaster will feed it a treat of raw meat later for its good work. The lord parts ways with Sir Stephen, each to prepare for the evening. The castle now basks in the golden light of late afternoon. Snow flurries begin to drift down from a gray cloud, and a few servants hurry to cover firewood piles with tarps. Inside, candles and lamps are being lit as dusk approaches. A servant with a long pole and a small flame ignites the oil lamps in the great hall, which hang from iron sconces. Candles of tallow, rendered animal fat, sit on tables and in wall niches, their wicks now flickering to life. Tallow candles give a rather smoky, smelly light, like a pungent burning fat odor, but they are cheap and commonly used. For the high table tonight, a few beeswax candles will be brought out. Those burn cleaner and smell of honey, but are expensive luxuries reserved for the lord's immediate vicinity. The hall's hearth fire is also stoked high, crackling warmly and casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. The castle is preparing to shine for the celebration, shaking off the day's work and donning a more festive atmosphere. Evening in the Great Hall. Night falls early in winter, and by the time the first stars prick the sky, the castle's Great Hall has been transformed for the evening's banquet. The long trestle tables have been reconfigured. At the far end on the raised dais, the high table is set extravagantly. A richly woven red tablecloth drapes over it, and on top stands the best silverware the castle owns. Decorated goblets for the lord and lady, gleaming plates, perhaps of polished pewter or even silver for honored guests, and ornate salt cellars, A high-backed chair for the lord and a matching one for the lady are placed at the center of the dais, with slightly lesser chairs for Sir Stephen and a couple of other prominent guests next to them. Lower tables are set with simpler pottery dishes and wooden cups for the rest of the household, but even those have been scrubbed until they gleam. Fresh rushes and herbs on the floor release a pleasant scent underfoot as people walk in. The hall's tapestries and banners are vivid in the firelight and candlelight, creating an almost magical glow in the high-ceilinged space. From a side door, the minstrels enter, quietly tuning their instruments. There's a harpist, a fiddle player, and one with a small flute. They will provide gentle music as the guests gather and throughout the first courses, helping set an elegant mood. In one corner, the castle's jester is already entertaining some early arriving guests, juggling 3 colorful balls and making an exaggerated bow that sends a ripple of chuckles through the onlookers. Officially, the jester will perform later, but he never misses an opportunity to warm up the crowd. His bright, motley clothing and cap with bells make him easy to spot. Despite acting the fool, a jester in a noble household often had to be sharp-witted and careful. By joking, he could speak truths to power that others wouldn't dare, yet he had to not go too far. Legendary is the French king's jester Triboulet, who, when sentenced to death for overstepping, cleverly requested to die of old age and was pardoned. Our jester likely knows just how far to push the barons and knights in the hall for a good laugh without ruffling feathers. Now the company assembles. The lord and lady make their entrance from their chambers, dressed in their finest. The lord wears a deep crimson tunic embroidered with gold thread at the sleeves and collar, displaying his coat of arms proudly. At his side hangs a dress sword, more ceremonial than practical tonight. The lady is stunning in a gown of wine-colored silk, with a fancy headdress draped with a translucent veil that falls elegantly to her shoulders. Every eye in the hall turns to them as they walk in. All the guests, knights, ladies, the important servants, rise and bow or curtsy. The couple ascends the dais and stand behind their chairs. Following them are the honored guests. Sir Stephen looking proud in a new tailored doublet, the castle's priest, the chaplain, in formal robes, and 2 neighboring noblewomen who traveled with the lady. They each find their seats at the high table. When everyone is in place, the steward claps for silence and announces the beginning of the banquet. The chaplain offers a grace. He thanks God for the safe return of the lady, for Sir Stephen's knighthood, and asks for blessings on the food. A chorus of amens echoes, and so the feast begins. From the kitchen, a line of servers processes forth. They carry large platters and bowls. The first course is being laid out. Traditionally, a medieval banquet might have several courses, perhaps 3 big courses, each with multiple dishes served together. Our first course includes trenchers of savory pottage, a thick soup, ladled into bowls. One looks to be a creamy almond milk broth with bits of freshwater fish and parsley, suitable for a winter starter. Another dish is trout in galantine sauce, cold poached trout slices in a spiced jelly-like sauce, a delicacy for the high table. There are also warm meat pies coming out, small pastries filled with minced pork and spices. The aroma that wafts in with the servers causes smiles and anticipatory murmurs. As these dishes are placed on the high table, the lord makes a point of inviting the prominent guests to help themselves first. It's customary for the highest ranking to be served or to take portions before those of lower rank. However, the lord is mindful of chivalry. He personally carves a slice of trout and offers it to the lady on a trencher, a gesture of courtesy and affection. She accepts gracefully. Then the others begin to eat, and the servers move to distribute food to the lower tables as well. Though perhaps the common soldiers won't see the delicate trout dish, they will certainly get generous ladles of the hearty stew and plenty of pie to fill their bellies. Wine and ale flow freely. The butler and his assistants circulate with pitchers. The lord and Sir Stephen toast each other, the lord raising a cup of fine Gascon wine in honor of the younger knight's valor and loyalty. "To Sir Stephen, and may his sword arm never fail," the lord declares. "Hear, hear," echo the knights around. Sir Stephen, a bit bashful but pleased, stands and bows. He then toasts the lady To our gracious lady, whose kindness and wisdom guide this castle, welcome home." She inclines her head in thanks as the hall applauds. Between courses, conversation and entertainment take center stage. After the first course is cleared, bones and leavings removed by diligent young pages, crumbs swept from the tablecloth, the minstrels strike up a more lively tune. A singer among them begins a ballad, a tale of Charlemagne's paladins in battle perhaps, or a romantic lay of a love-struck knight. The music fills the hall, and people pause, eating to listen. Some of the younger folk mouth the refrain. It's a popular song they know. The second course arrives to fanfare, quite literally, as two servants blow trumpets to announce a grand dish. Marching in comes the centerpiece of the feast, a roasted peacock, redressed in its iridescent blue and green feathers, tail fanned out magnificently. An ooh goes around the hall at the sight. While swans or peacocks might not be everyday fare, they were indeed served on special occasions in high medieval society. The peacock may be largely for show, but it's edible too. The meat has been roasted and perhaps basted with a wine sauce. The lady has the honor of slicing a bit of the breast meat to taste, and she exclaims politely on its flavor, though between us, peacock might be a bit tough. Alongside this, there are platters of venison, deer meat, stewed in a rich wine gravy, and boar's head, an impressive boar's head served on a platter, with an apple in its mouth. This was a traditional show dish, especially around Yuletide, but they've put one on tonight in display of the castle's hunting prowess. There are also vegetable side dishes, leeks cooked in almond milk, a dish of peas with spices, and fresh bread to sop up gravies. We notice how the dining etiquette works. People eat mostly with their fingers and a knife. Forks haven't really caught on yet. They exist in some places but are rare and viewed oddly. So a personal dagger or table knife is used to spear and cut food, and fingers do the rest. There are finger bowls or pitchers of water available periodically to rinse sticky hands. Our young page from earlier diligently holds a towel ready for the Lord should he desire to wipe his fingers. The notion of personal plates is somewhat flexible. Diners often share common dishes, especially at lower tables. Two people might use the same trencher of bread as their plate, scooping food onto it and eating from it together. These pairs were called messmates. In fact, sharing a trencher was a sign of camaraderie or social bond. At the high table, they have more individual settings, but even there, communal bowls are common. Conversations cross the tables. One might think a medieval feast is all formality, but it's actually often boisterous and merry. Jokes fly among the knights. One knight boasts about a tournament victory he had, another ribbing him. "Aye, Sir John, but didn't your lance miss the target twice before you unhorsed that lad?" Good-natured laughter follows. The lady chats with the two noblewomen near her about fashions at court. Apparently, the queen has introduced a new style of veil, very extravagant. The ladies in waiting further down giggle about which knight is sneaking glances at which maiden across the room. Amidst this, the lord occasionally leans over to quietly discuss matters with the steward or constable. Things like, "Have the watch doubled tonight?" Or, "Did you dispatch that messenger to my vassal about the extra grain needed?" Even during feasting, a lord's mind might touch on administrative concerns. But he doesn't let duty fully distract him. He's enjoying playing the generous host. He waves over a servant. "Make sure the men at the back get some of this boar. It's too fine to keep to ourselves." Such gestures earn him cheer and loyalty. Generosity is expected of a good lord during feasts. For dessert or final course, the castle presents subtleties and sweets. The kitchen boys come out triumphantly bearing the pastry swans that were planned. Delicate baked pastries in the shape of swans. Their wings glazed with sugar. They place them before the lady and guests, who admire the creativity. There are also bowls of fruit compote, fruits preserved in honey and wine, and spiced wine called hippocras being poured as a digestive. A cheer goes up for Master Isaac and the kitchen staff, and they are invited to take a bow at the hall entrance. In many medieval feasts, the cooks might even be called in to be acknowledged for their work, a moment of pride for them. The lady takes a small bite of a pastry swan and declares it delicious. Sir Stephen, perhaps emboldened by wine, jests that he prefers a hearty meat pie to bird-shaped cookies, which makes the knights laugh. But the lady playfully chides him. "That's because you've yet to appreciate the sweeter things, Sir Stephen." The mood is convivial and warm. Now that the eating is largely done, entertainment takes full focus. The Lord claps for the jester to begin his act. The jester bounds to the center of the hall. He starts with a comic song accompanied by the lute, poking light fun at everyone. "Oh, the bold knight he preens with his helm and his crest, but put him in a tavern, and ale lays him to rest," he sings, wagging a finger at a knight known for dozing off drunk. The hall roars with laughter. He teases the steward, "Our steward's so strict, even the mice march in line," and jabs at the young page. "The page is all pomp with his nose in the air. Careful, lad, there's no pudding up there." Each jibe is met with chuckles and no offense. He offends none too deeply. The jester's role is to bring everyone together in mirth. He even does a quick acrobatic flip, causing the ladies to gasp and applaud. We hear that a good fool was a cherished asset to a noble. King Henry II of England had a famous jester named Roland the Farter, who, legend says, earned an entire manor for one Christmas fart trick. Our jester, perhaps aspiring to such heights, finishes with a dramatic mock-serious monologue about the perils of overeating, patting his own stuffed belly, which gets everyone smiling as they sit feeling full and content. After the laughter subsides, one of the minstrels, an older man with a harp, steps forward and announces he will tell a story. The hall quiets again, and he begins an epic tale of battle and bravery. He tells of a siege long ago when a great castle, much like this one he implies, stood firm against a mighty foe. He describes how the defenders shot arrows through the arrow loops and poured boiling oil from the battlements, turning the attackers' ladders away. It sounds a bit like the famous siege of Dover Castle in 1216, where some 140 knights and 1,000 soldiers held off a French army. The listeners nod knowingly at the reference. He then weaves in a cautionary part about another siege, where the castle held so long that food ran out, and the people had to eat horses, dogs, even rats, and their own leather belts to survive. That harrowing image clearly echoes the real siege of Kenilworth in 1266, where starvation eventually forced a surrender. People murmur at the grimness of that fate. But the storyteller continues in a triumphant tone. "Courage and loyalty saved the day in our tale. For just as hope dimmed, relief arrived, and the enemy was driven off." The hall erupts in applause at the stirring end. We can't help but notice some shared glances among the older knights and the constable Sir Robert. They know that not every siege has a happy ending, but tonight, no one wants to dwell on darker possibilities. One of the visiting ladies-in-waiting then surprises everyone by offering to perform a dance. She's renowned for her grace. With the ladies' encouragement, she steps into the open floor and, as a lute plays a lively a stampy tune, she performs a series of elegant turns and steps. A couple of younger knights join in, attempting a courtly dance, leading to some cheerful clapping in rhythm. The mood is light and celebratory, the castle's hall filled with the glow of candlelight, music, and the well-fed happiness of its inhabitants. As the evening wears on, the high table begins to break up. The lady whispers to the lord that she will retire for the night, as the travel and festivities have tired her. He nods and stands, offering her his hand. They make their farewells. Everyone stands respectfully as the lady exits with her ladies escorting her, heading to her chambers. The lord remains a bit longer, toasting once more with the knights and sharing a last cup of wine. But eventually he too withdraws to join his wife and ensure she is well settled. The honored guests depart to their assigned quarters. Sir Stephen is shown to a comfortable guest room furnished with a feather bed and a small fireplace. A luxury. Many castles wouldn't have many heated private rooms, but he's getting VIP treatment. Gradually, the feast winds down. The lesser folk are now free to really enjoy themselves. The remaining wine and ale is shared out. The soldiers and servants who remain mingle. We see a few of the castle guards swapping exaggerated stories with the kitchen staff. One brags about a boar hunt, another about seeing a ghost in the chapel one night after too much ale. Laughter ensues. Two maids start a simple folk dance near the hearth, joined by a young squire clapping along. The mood might be relaxed, but the castle's duties never entirely pause. A watchman in the corner quietly reminds a couple of tipsy guards that they're on duty at midnight. With a groan, they set down their ale cups and make sure to sober up. Guarding the walls is serious, feast night or not. By the time the hall is nearly empty, it is very late, likely past midnight. The hearth's fire has died down to glowing coals. Here and there, a few figures lie curled up on the floor, having decided to just sleep right here in the hall rather than stumble to the barracks. It was actually common for lower servants or guards to sleep in the hall on mats or benches on ordinary nights. And tonight, some have dozed off after merrymaking. A steward quietly directs a couple of men to douse most of the candles, no point risking a fire, leaving only a dim light for those sleeping. The last of the music has ceased, and the castle drifts into slumber. Nightfall and warnings. The castle in the deep of night is a place of eerie quiet and dark shadows. The revelry has died down, and most people are asleep in their various quarters. The nobles in their cushioned chambers, the soldiers in the barracks or on the floor of the hall, the servants wherever they can find a spot, some on kitchen pallets, some in hay near the stables for warmth. A few faint noises punctuate the silence. The scuffle of rats in the pantry, inevitable in any medieval storeroom. The soft whinny of a horse from the stable. A distant owl hooting. High in the ladies' chamber, a single oil lamp flickers on a table, casting a gentle glow over the room. The lady is asleep under thick covers, exhausted but content. The lord, however, lies next to her with eyes open, mind still alert. Perhaps the responsibilities of the day weigh on him, or maybe he's replaying the joyous scenes of the evening. Outside their window slit, the winter wind picks up, a low howl around the stone. The lord rises carefully, wrapping a fur robe around his shoulders so as not to wake his wife. He goes to the window and peers out into the blackness. Snow is falling more steadily now, specks of white against the night. The courtyard is mostly empty, and blanketed in fresh snow save for one moving lantern by the gate, likely the night guard making rounds. Suddenly, a muffled shout is heard from the direction of the gatehouse. The lord stiffens. Another shout, clearer now. "Who goes there? Halt!" It's the gate sentry's voice, carrying through the stillness. The lady stirs at the noise, and the lord quickly steps to the door. In the hallway, a page who had been dozing on a stool jumps up at seeing the lord emerge. "Fetch Sir Robert now," the lord orders in a low, urgent voice. The page scampers off. The lady, now awake, appears at the doorway in a hastily donned gown, worry in her eyes. "What is it?" she asks softly. "I'm not sure yet," the lord replies, trying to remain calm. Down in the courtyard, a small commotion is brewing. We follow the lord as he descends the spiral stairs of the keep, 2 steps at a time, one hand on the cold stone wall for balance, the other gripping his sheathed sword. By the time he reaches the courtyard, Sir Robert the Constable is already there, pulling on a mail shirt over his night tunic, and a handful of guards with spears and lanterns have clustered by the main gate. The wind whips snow around them. A guard runs in from the gatehouse, breathless. "My lord, a rider, a messenger. He's at the gate." The group moves toward the gatehouse. The drawbridge is up and portcullis down, as it should be at night. Outside the gate, a lone voice calls out repeatedly, "Message for Lord! Urgent news!" The lord nods to the constable. Sir Robert goes up to a narrow arrow slit by the gate and shouts out, demanding the stranger identify himself. The reply comes. He is a royal courier, bearing news from the king, and begs entry. Skeptical soldiers peer through the iron bars of the portcullis. By their lantern light, they see a single rider cloaked in snow, holding up a sealed scroll. He indeed has the look of a king's courier. There are known uniforms or badges such messengers might carry. With a deep creak, the portcullis is raised just enough, and the drawbridge lowered to allow the messenger in. The poor man practically falls from his horse, shivering from a long ride in the freezing dark. He's brought into the gatehouse room where a brazier glows, and there in front of the lord and Sir Robert he kneels and presents the sealed parchment. "From His Majesty," he manages, chattering teeth betraying his exhaustion. The lord breaks the seal and holds the letter near a lantern to read. His eyes narrow as he scans the script. A moment of silence, then a terse command. Wake the knights, all of them, and the guard. Sound the alarm bell. Sir Robert bows and rushes off, already barking for the garrison to assemble. The Lord turns to the messenger, puts a hand on his shoulder, and asks gravely, "How far behind you are they?" The messenger replies, "Not far, my lord. Perhaps a day's march. They may reach here by dawn or shortly after." The Lord thanks him and orders a servant to get this man some hot broth and a place by the fire to rest. He's done his duty well. Within minutes, alarm bells ring out from the chapel tower, a metallic clang, clang, clang that wakes everyone from their slumber with a jolt. This is not a drill or a curfew signal. Those have distinctive patterns. This is clearly the alarm for imminent danger. A ripple of shock and confusion spreads. Bleary-eyed soldiers grab weapons, servants peek out from doorways in fear, children start crying as their nurses hurriedly dress them. The lady, hearing the clamor, already begins gathering her essential belongings and her children, ready to move to the safest area, likely the keep or a protected tower. The message from the king warned of a band of enemy soldiers, rebels or perhaps a raiding party from a neighboring land, making their way toward the region, pillaging as they go. It seems war has reached the castle's doorstep tonight. This is not entirely unexpected. Political tensions have been high. We can imagine it's a time of rebellion. Maybe a faction of discontented nobles is challenging the king. Or if we set this on a border, maybe enemy forces from Scotland or a Welsh uprising are making incursions. The important fact, by morning, hostile troops may attempt to storm this castle, and the castle must be ready. The transformation is instant. From festive hall to military fortress on high alert, the sleepy castle of an hour ago becomes a regimented defensive camp. Sir Robert and his men start shouting positions. Archers to the west wall, pikemen at the gate, crossbowmen to the towers. A trainee squire fumbles with buckling on a cuirass chestplate and is steadied by a seasoned man-at-arms who claps a helmet on the youth's head. Knights who hours earlier were laughing over wine now don chainmail and steel with grim faces. The blacksmith, awakened abruptly, sets up makeshift forges to sharpen any dulled swords and arrowheads. The courtyard becomes an armory. Weapons racks are flung open, bows strung, arrows counted, spears distributed. The Lord, now donning armor with the help of his valet, calls the key officers together by the well. By torchlight and blowing snow, they form a quick battle plan. The castle isn't large, but its walls are strong. They plan to hold the walls and gate, repel any assault, and wait for relief. If the king knows the enemy's coming, perhaps royal forces are on their way too. The Lord assigns the defense sectors. Sir Stephen, eager to prove himself, is given command of the north wall. The constable Sir Robert will command the gatehouse and main entrance. Another veteran knight takes the south and west. The archers are split among the walls to rain arrows on the approach. Everyone knows their roles. They've drilled for this possibility in calmer times. Now it's the real thing. We catch a glimpse of the lady, shepherding her 2 children and a few servants into the chapel, which is deep inside the castle and somewhat fortified. Often during sieges, non-combatants shelter in a secure area like the keep or a strong lower room. She's pale but composed, whispering prayers even as she reassures the frightened youngsters. A maid carries a small bundle of valuables, perhaps family jewels or important documents, behind them. If they had to flee or if the castle fell, those are things they'd try to save. The chapel door is shut, but the lady insisted on one small opening left so she can send messages or emerge if needed. She won't interfere with the defense, but she must know what's happening. Just before dawn, the castle stands ready. Every man is at his post on the walls. Every pot of hot water or sand, a less dramatic alternative to boiling oil, is prepared to be hurled down on attackers. Every arrow is knocked on the string. It's bitter cold. Some men stamp their feet to stay warm, but they keep quiet and vigilant. The horizon begins to lighten to a steel gray, and in that dim pre-dawn glow, movement is spotted on the road. They are here. The enemy force, perhaps 50 or 60 men, a mix of rogue knights and mercenaries by the look of their mismatched gear, emerge from the tree line. They march toward the castle gate with torches flaring in the gloom. At their head rides a knight in dark armor, likely the rebel leader or enemy captain. He halts out of arrow range, surveying the castle. Our lord stands atop the gatehouse, helmet on, watching them. There is an expectant hush. Then the enemy knight calls out, voice echoing, "Open your gates! This castle is claimed in the name of the would-be usurper or enemy king. Surrender, and no blood need be shed." His demand hangs in the cold air. The lord of the castle responds firmly, "This castle stands loyal to our king. If you want it, come and try to take it. No lengthy parley. Both sides know this is to be a fight." The enemy knight circles his arm in the air, giving a signal. With a great shout, the band of attackers rushes forward, raising ladders, swords gleaming. They charge across the open field toward the walls, yelling war cries. The castle's defenders let them come within range. Then the lord drops his arm in signal, and a volley of arrows streaks from the battlements. Our archers and crossbowmen loose arrows and bolts from the safety of their arrow loops and crenels. The twang of bowstrings and the wicked whiz of arrows is followed by cries as several attackers fall, struck before they even touch the walls. But more keep coming, holding wooden shields over their heads. Some carry long scaling ladders. They skid to a halt at the base of the walls and slam the ladders upward. "Push them off!" Sir Stephen shouts on his side, heaving against a ladder as a helmeted foe starts to climb up. A defender topples one ladder, sending two climbers tumbling back with a crash. At the gate, a group of enemy soldiers have a battering ram, basically a felled tree trunk, and begin thudding it against the wooden outer door. Boom! Boom! The sturdy gate holds, reinforced with iron, but it won't forever under repeated blows. The castle's men respond by dumping something from above, a rush of hot sand heated in cauldrons, cascading through the murder holes onto the ram crew. Agonized screams arise as scalding grains get under armor and onto skin. The ram's rhythm falters. Then Sir Robert, overseeing the gate defense, signals, and they drop a large stone, kept ready for this purpose, from the battlements. It smashes onto the battering ram, splintering part of it and scattering the attackers below. Along the parapets, intense hand-to-hand combat breaks out at any ladder top where attackers manage to crest the wall. One burly raider clambers up and swings an axe, forcing back a guard. The enemy gets a foot onto the battlement, only to meet the lord of the castle himself, who rushes over and engages. Sword clashes with axe. The lord, fueled by resolve to protect his home, parries a heavy blow and counters with a thrust that finds a gap in the raider's armor. The man collapses, and two soldiers quickly shove him off the ledge. Sir Stephen is battling two foes at once on the north wall, his blade flashing. An arrow from one of our archers strikes one assailant in the thigh, giving Sir Stephen an opening to knock the other out with his shield, and then disarm the wounded one. His training pays off. He holds his section with the help of his men. Below, the attackers' morale begins to waver. They expected perhaps to surprise the castle or find it weakly held after a feast night. Instead, they met a well-organized defense and heavy losses. Still, they press a bit longer. The enemy leader, furious, rides near the walls, shouting for another push. He has archers too. A flight of enemy arrows zips toward the wall, one narrowly missing our lord's shoulder. One of our men yells in pain and falls, struck from below. Angered, our archers redouble their shooting. A castle archer leans out from a crenellation, picking targets carefully. He sees the enemy leader on horseback and lets fly. The arrow strikes true. The enemy knight topples from his horse with a cry. Chaos ensues in the attacking ranks as they see their leader fall. Some continue the fight, but many begin to fall back, dragging wounded comrades. Then comes a crucial moment. Through the swirling snow, a horn sounds in the distance. Both sides pause, unsure. But our side soon cheers. From the east road, a banner appears. The king's colors. Allied reinforcements are arriving. Perhaps a detachment from the king's army, alerted by the same messenger who warned us, has marched through the night to relieve the castle. Seeing fresh troops incoming, the remaining attackers lose all will to continue. The castle defenders whoop and holler as the enemy force fully retreats, running back toward the woods, leaderless and defeated. Some throw down arms to run faster. The siege, or rather the assault, has been repelled. The whole clash lasted maybe an hour, though it felt like an eternity in the heat of it. The sun is now fully risen, casting pale light on a yard strewn with a few fallen attackers and arrows stuck in the ground. The snow is trampled and reddened in spots. The castle gates are opened now to welcome the royal reinforcements, who pursue the retreating foes a short way before returning. Our lord steps out to greet the captain of the relief force with heartfelt gratitude. They clasp arms amid the cold morning air, both knowing how narrowly the castle escaped a dire fate. Inside the walls, a strange mix of jubilation and somberness reigns. 3 of the castle's men were killed, and several wounded. Their comrades carry them gently to the chapel. The lady emerges, rushing to embrace her husband, and then pause, eyes closed, in a prayer of thanks. She immediately tends to organizing care for the wounded, tearing linen for bandages, applying herbal salves from her stores. The dead are covered with cloaks, and the chaplain begins to recite prayers for their souls. This castle won't forget their sacrifice. They defended their lord and home bravely. Exhausted knights lean against walls, their breath steaming, armor dented but spirits high. Sir Stephen, panting and with a cut on his forehead, is mobbed by young squires praising his skill. He truly proved himself in battle this dawn. The Lord offers him a personal thanks and calls him a worthy knight of this castle. Sir Stephen flushes with pride despite his fatigue. Sir Robert reports that a few prisoners were taken, wounded attackers who yielded. The Lord orders them treated and kept under guard. They can be questioned later to learn more about this enemy faction. He also gives orders to inspect the walls for damage, repair the gate where the ram hit, and restock the arrow supplies. The castle will remain on guard for days to come, but for now, the immediate threat has passed. Dawn of a new day. Epilogue. As the sun breaks fully over the horizon, casting a golden light on the castle's battlements, life inside the castle resumes, albeit shakily, the rhythm of a new day. In the courtyard, the survivors and residents begin to pick up the pieces. Some are dazed. Just last night they were feasting and laughing in the hall, and now arrows lie in the snow, and the scent of battle, and breakfast cooking oddly from the kitchen fires relit, hangs in the air. The castle's people have been starkly reminded of why their fortress exists, not just for feasts and displays of power, but as a shield against violence, a sanctuary in times of war. The Lord and Lady stand together atop the gatehouse, looking out across their land as the morning sun illuminates it. Smoke from a few enemy torches still rises in the distance where the raiders burned a farmhouse or two, but the danger has been averted. The lady gently rests her head on the Lord's shoulder. They've both been awake for far too long, but there's relief in their posture. They know that, thanks to the loyalty and courage of their household and the stoutness of their castle walls, their way of life endures. Below them in the courtyard, the routines of daily life are already reasserting themselves. Servants bucket water from the well to douse an accidental fire that started in a hay pile during the fray. The cook, who spent the battle sheltering with some kitchen staff in the pantry, now re-emerges, and despite having had no sleep, heads right to the kitchen. People will be starving after that effort, and he'll make sure a hearty stew is on for a late breakfast. A couple of scullions sweep the detritus of battle out of the gate passage. Broken arrows, a lost glove, blood-stained slush shoveled aside. The stable boys calm the horses, who are skittish from the smell of blood and the clamor of the night. In the great hall, weary men-at-arms sit at tables, sipping ale or water, replaying their personal adventures, each a small hero's tale now. The jester, nursing a bruise, he bumped into a door running to hide when the fighting started, limps around offering exaggerated laments like, "Alas, I chose the wrong night to stay up late. Even the fool needs his beauty sleep." Managing to draw a few chuckles from battered soldiers. Laughter, however minor, is medicine now. The chaplain moves through, offering blessings to those who want them and comfort to the anxious. He reminds everyone that a Thanksgiving Mass will be held shortly in the chapel to give thanks for deliverance. Many nod appreciatively. Even the less devout feel the need to acknowledge the divine favor that seemingly aided them. The castle's children, who had been kept in the chapel during the fight, now peek out, wide-eyed. They're quickly scooped up by their mother, the lady, who assures them things are safe. The older one, the boy, is full of questions. Did we win? Did Sir Stephen fight them off? Can I see the battle scars on the wall? His father, the Lord, manages a tired smile and says, We won, thanks to God and brave men. Someday, you'll be the one defending this castle, my son, but hopefully not too soon. He ruffles the boy's hair. The girl clings to her mother, sensing the serious mood. The lady promises her some honeyed milk in the solar to calm her nerves. As the day brightens, we step back and take in the entire tableau of castle life we've witnessed. In just 24 hours, this medieval castle has shown us its many faces. The bustling household at dawn, full of routine and hard work. The ceremonial splendor of nobility, with feasting and music echoing in the rafters. The quiet, intimate moments of family and faith. The intense drama of battle, with blood, fire, and heroism on the very walls that earlier held laughter. And now, the aftermath, a mix of sorrow for the fallen and gratitude for survival. Through it all, the castle stands sturdy, its thick stones bearing scars of the night's fight, but its gates still strong, its people still vibrant. This fortress was not just cold walls, it was, and is, alive. Alive with the labor of servants who scrub and cook and toil from before sunrise. Alive with the pride and duties of knights and lords who train, joust, hunt, and sometimes shed blood to protect their own. Alive with the laughter of a jester and the babble of children playing in the yard. Alive with the solemn hymns of the chapel and the clang of the blacksmith's hammer. Medieval castle life was all these things, harsh and joyful, tedious and celebratory, peaceful and violent by turns. It was a world nearly self-contained, operating on its own rhythms of bells and seasons, yet connected to the greater currents of the medieval realm through feudal obligations, royal commands, and the ever-present specter of war. The castle served as a home for the noble family and the community of people who sustained them, as an administrative center for surrounding lands, and as a fortress in times of peril. Within its walls, one could find a microcosm of medieval society, lords and ladies displaying power and generosity, skilled officers like stewards and constables keeping order, knights honing chivalry and combat, servants striving for a better life with steady work and food, entertainers bringing culture and levity, and clergy tending to souls. As the host of our podcast journey, I step figuratively through the gates one last time, looking back at the castle. It almost feels as if the stones themselves could speak, telling endless stories of the lives lived here, from quiet evenings by the hearth to thundering sieges that tested the mettle of its inhabitants. If these walls could talk, they would tell of Jeanne de Valence's grand arrival with her 100 servants and wagons, of the countless meals where even the finest swan or heron was served by Isaac the cook to please the Lord, of the laughter at the antics of fools like Matilda Makejoy and Reginald the Liar, who once danced and joked in great halls, of the diligence of unnamed men and women who swept rushes, scrubbed laundry, shoed horses, and poured wine day after day to keep this little world running, and of the alarms in the dark, the arrows and swords, the heroic stands on the battlements when duty called. Life in a medieval castle was never static. It could go from calm to chaos in a heartbeat. But through fortune and fortitude, daily life would resume. Tapestries would be rehung, tables set again, children's laughter return, and the castle community endure. Today, as the morning sun climbs higher, one can almost feel that resilience in the air. A pair of servants carry fresh bread from the bakery to the hall, breakfast for the weary defenders. A knight removes his dented helmet, runs a hand through his hair, and smiles at a maid who offers him a cup of ale. The lady supervises care for an injured guard, already planning how to aid the burned villages nearby once it's safe. The lord confers with the king's captain, discussing the next steps, but also catches the eye of his wife and exchanges a relieved smile. They have held their own on this trying night, And for now, all is safe within these walls. Our journey ends as it began, with the castle and its people carrying on their lives. Immersed in this world of stone and story, we've seen how every aspect, from architecture to food to hierarchy to conflict, weaves together into the tapestry of medieval life. It's a world where the Great Hall hosts both grand feasts and sleeping soldiers, where the chapel's bells mark both ordinary days and extraordinary crises, where the same hands that scrub floors by morning might bear swords by night. Thank you for walking with me through this day and night in a medieval castle. As the castle's gates open to a new day, we step back into our own time, carrying with us the vivid memories of castle life, the taste of spiced wine, the sound of lute strings, the sight of dawn light on ancient stones, and the indomitable spirit of the people who lived, worked, feasted, and fought behind those walls so many centuries ago. Sound of a castle's morning bells ringing slowly, fade out,